Hello everybody, Dodger here. Welcome back to Automation. Today we have something exciting to do, and that is to check out build 1317, which means a full update has come out, not just a little bug fix, not just a patch on a few things. We've got new things to check out. Everything looks the same here, but not everything sounds the same. The full soundtrack has been added, so we got more than one song playing in the background there, and we will experience that soundtrack as we play. There has been some pretty dramatic updates to the car chassis system and the platforms and the models and all of that good stuff. Some of that has had some effects on our little series here, or our engine recreation series. They're gone. But don't worry, I am still going to release the engine pack that we created in the mini-series, and that will still be usable in the previous build. So until this version goes public, you can mess around with those, or you could just, you know, keep two different installs of the game up and mess around with those in the old build of the game. So that will still be a thing, and there will be a link in the description of the video if you would like to download that engine pack. So we'll have every engine recreation I did, plus the contest engine, pretty much every engine I built. Just I was going to use that as a like a thank you for reaching a certain milestone that I'm coming up on. This update has pushed that up a little bit, so I will have to think of something else for that milestone, but I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So enough talking, let's start with a new everything. So since we have nothing to work off of, and this is kind of what I wanted to do anyway, I wanted to make a whole new car with a new engine and everything. And let's see, I don't even remember what we do. I think we hit new model first, no, new platform. So we are going to start with the body. It's a little backwards, but for some reason it just feels more comfortable for me to start that way. This is all pretty much the same. We've got a few more options in the materials, though. We got steel, corrosion-resistant steel, AHS steel, I'm not sure what that is, glued aluminum or carbon fiber. I guess I should divulge on what car I would like to make here. I think, now last time I did this, I think I made a 90s 2+2 kind of sports coupe. This time I want to go for a full-on sports GT car, like your Supras, your 3000 GTs, Skyline, etc. So we're going to go back again in the years. We'll go back to 95. That was right at the end of that era. Okay, so the year is now 95, and I think if we change the year, yep, the music will change to match the era. If that's not the coolest thing ever. So basically, they had one composer make one or two different songs per decade to kind of encapture that sound, but they all have, it's almost like the same song in every era. I've heard the whole soundtrack. It is available online if you'd like to buy it. I will also link that in the description. It's really good. He did an amazing job on it. I think we're all very impressed with how great it has turned out. So here's our 95 tunes going. We will do a, you know, these cars weren't obnoxiously light or high-tech in that department, so we'll go with regular steel. Go with corrosion-resistant steel. We will go with a, this is a little bit different. Some of them were transverse, like the 3000 GT. It did use the transaxle with a differential that came off to the back, but most of the really good ones were longitudinal arrangement. I'm going to do struts in the front rather than double wishbone. Struts were still pretty darn popular in this era, especially for cars like this. And then the back. In the back, I'm not really too sure what to do. I think I'm going to go with double wishbone, because this is supposed to be a pretty sporty car, and we don't really need it to be compact. We don't need to go off-road, and we don't need a really high load capacity. All right, panel material. I think Now most of these cars were steel with bits of polymer in them or bits of aluminum. Let's go ahead into... so many decisions. I think I'm just going to do corrosion-resistant steel. Not too fancy. Let's choose a body style that's suitable for that era. Let's see. Not that one, not that one. I think this is the one we've... No, we haven't chosen that one before, but that's a little too small, I think. I know I'm going to go back to that Sylvia one, which I've used so many times. This one? Yeah, I've used that one so much. But it is definitely the shape of that era. So I think we'll go with that, and I'll just try and change up the design a little bit this time. So let's see. I want a pretty tall hood rather than that real slopey nose and kind of protruding. That makes it look a little bit more Skyline-esque, where you have a little bit of flat space. Let's bring this back even. Not too much of a bulge out there, just a little bit of a lip. Here's something we need to think of for later, is how much wheel arch we have. So I could go super crazy or, you know, pretty modest. I think I'm going to go pretty crazy on this one though. I wish I could almost give it a little bit more overall fender flare too. Okay, so let's give that back one just a little bit more, I think. I want to select you. Just a little bit more, because we're going to put some pretty wide tires on this car, and we do have the option to do that now, so got to keep that in consideration when making the body shell. On a pretty sloped up windshield, shortish doors, and I'm going to make it more coupe style than hatch style. Can I make that back a little shorter though? Yeah. I don't want it to be too small of a car, because you get too small and it starts looking more, you know, 2+2 kind of sport coupe rather than big sports GT. So we'll try and make these a little bit bigger. Make that just a hair longer. Alright, let's move on to some fixtures. Actually, let's change the color. Let's use red. So boring. Predictable. How about that blue? That'll work. Fixtures, headlights. I don't think we added a bunch of fixtures this version. That wasn't really the focus. The focus is more on the chassis stuff. Okay, so we got these that we used last time, I believe. But we've also got this square style. They look like they really want to fit right here. I do. Let's rotate them in just a little bit. Not too much. Yeah, that works. It almost looks like I need... Can I just extend them out some? They need to wrap around the sides a little bit more. Yeah. That's good. Let's get a grill in here. What's this one here? This one has like the slotted vents. Or is it just open? Oh, it's a fake grill. That's important now because the cooling system is much updated. You can see there's all sorts of new calculations here. It's showing us the max tire size we can use, it's showing the coefficient of drag, it's showing the cooling, it's showing all of that stuff now, so that is all working. For the motor I have planned for this thing, we're going to need a lot of cooling, so it is a little backwards of me to be doing this stuff first, but I will just go a little bit on the excess. Alrighty, so here's our design. I decided to kind of fast forward through that so that we could get to the new stuff. I like the way this one's turned out. It looks very, very 90s sporties. We got wings now, and we got a little creative. The lips are working much better, and I got a little creative there with the lip. Made a little roof spoiler as well because, of course, we need a roof spoiler. Why wouldn't we need a roof spoiler? Alright, so none of this is working yet because we have not made this into a full-on car. This is just a platform. So we're going to call this the Cone GT. We'll save that. Now, if we go out, we can make a new model based off of this. And we are going to do, I'm going to do all-wheel drive. And we can choose an engine. I'll make a new one, and I will do the same thing and burn through this. And come back to you once I decide on what kind of motor to put in it. Alrighty, so I think I've gotten the engine I wanted to make. I wanted 250 horsepower minimum out of a 4-cylinder turbo, and that is what I have achieved on a fairly reliable basis. Not a cheap motor, but not exotic expensive either. So, one new thing in this version of the game is the sounds. They are updated. They're using a different type of sound engine, and it has a much more full sound, I guess is how I'd describe it. It sounds much more complete. The turbo sounds are still not my favorite things in the world, but a lot can be done with that still in the future. So let's hear what it sounds like. Alright, so you see, not a perfect motor, but for the time restraints I have, it is good enough, and it will serve us well for the next part of this adventure. Just going to save this one as a CN22DET. So that makes sense to virtually nobody, but it will to me. Alright, so we can now choose this engine. Oops. I want to choose this engine. Okay, so here's our CN22DET. We are going to choose that motor. Here's the specs. Not too bad. I think it's an overall okay engine. It's not perfect by any means, but should suit us very well. And it is now in the car. We can see it. Oh, would you look at that little baby intercooler? That's so cute next to that gigantic radiator. We'll just ignore that hose going through the radiator. It's a feature. You know, it cools the. I don't know. It's just a feature, okay? So that is in there. I believe the exhaust system is coming out. Yep, total race style right out the side. I like it. Can I keep that? That would be awesome. All right. So let's put the body back on. We are going to have a manual gearbox with a single standard clutch on a 6-speed. Our estimated top speed is 156 miles an hour. So I will space it accordingly. Whoa, accordingly I say. So I'll give it just a little bit more than that, just in case, you know, some tuner comes along and decides to put a little more horsepower in that thing. I want them to have that ability. Spacing wise, they look okay. I might just try and give it a little bit of a short gear, especially for that all-wheel drive. You want some short first gear so you can really take off. Differentials, currently standard open diff is what we have to choose from. So let's go on to rims and tires, which we touched on before. We put these big fenders on there for a reason. So now up front, I can put some really wide tires in there to fill up those fender wells. As before, we just kind of had big fenders for no reason. Now there's actually a point to those big fenders, and now we have some gigantic tires to match. And we can put some, now 17s would actually be a little unrealistic for this era, so we'll do 16s. You wouldn't typically see 17s on a stock car in this era. We can't change the rim offset just yet. I see it there. I was hoping that was possible, but not just yet. So we got all of that. Wheel diameter. So I can actually change the tire, how much of a profile is on there. Oops, but we want 16, and a good decent profile on there. Not super skinny, so that it's a real bouncy ride. And we're gonna put some sport compound on there, not semi-slicks, just, you know, a good sporty tire. Brakes, we can put brakes on there now. Let's see, solid discs. We'll do, this must be the front. Yeah, 2 pistons up front. Pad type, something. We'll say these. I'd say that's not quite implemented just yet. We got the disc size, which is limited to your wheel size, so you can see that's as high as it will go, and that is how high we will go. We want as much front brake on this thing as possible. It's gonna be a pretty light car, but it's got some bulk to it with all that all steel construction. So we'll just do regular 1 pistons in the back. That would be typical of the era, and not too huge on the rear rotors either. So that is what we have there. Suspension. We can change the suspension settings as well. Let's see. We can go up on the camber. This must be the front. Yes, front and then rear. We don't want a whole lot of camber in the front. That works. And maybe even we'll go up to 0.7. So that's, for a stock car, that's completely reasonable. You know, if it was a tuned out car, it would be something crazy like that. But this is what we're building here. What I'm intending to build is an OEM car, so we won't go that crazy. This stuff I will have to mess around with, and we will test it and see what we need to do with this at a later time. We want the ride height to be fairly low. This is kind of a workaround right now because the interior stuff is not worked out yet, and there's still so many features of the car that need to be implemented. This kind of gives you a ability. This is the minimum weight. This is the weight that you have in the car right now, and you can add in that stuff that will be added in the future. And I would expect this car to be between 2,800 and 3,000 pounds. So let's go 2,900. Especially with that all-wheel drive system, that adds a lot of weight. So that works. We can also tweak the weight distribution. I want this one to be a little bit front heavy, but not too bad. So 54.67, 45.3 something. Not too bad. That'll work. Airflow, we can reduce how much airflow we have according to how much we need. We have a little bit more than we need, I believe, so I will just take this down. And that lowers our CD, and that is the coefficient of drag, which will help our miles per gallon, which in this era we don't care about too terribly much. Alrighty, so now to this testing screen, and we see a lot of new things. There's our name, there's our power, 254 horsepower at 6,300 RPM, 6 gears all-wheel drive, 2,900 pounds. There's our weight distribution. We topped out at 146 miles per hour, probably limited by aero. Our quarter mile of 14.1 at 97. That's acceptable. There is our tires, 235s in the front, 275s in the back, which gave us a 0.91 G skid pad test at 47 miles an hour. 0.91 isn't great, so we might want to do some tuning there. The aero efficiency of 0.432, I'm not sure what that represents just yet. Economy, 27.2 miles per gallon. That's pretty darn good for a car of this relative amount of performance. Max roll angle, 4.73 degrees, and we'll mess around with some of these suspension settings to mess around with that. And downforce at 124 miles an hour, we're making 72 pounds of downforce. So not a whole lot, but a decent amount. So there's our power versus time. We had that before. So the yaw rate is probably the most important to look at for right now. We've got the, looks like a pretty massive understeer, which is aided mostly by those small front tires versus the rear. We do have that front heavy configuration, but that's not going to overcome it at 40 miles an hour, that's for sure. So this would be our skid pad test, and you can see it never gets out of control. It always just understeers, which makes for a little bit of a boring drive. So let's try and mess around with some of this stuff. Tire-wise, can we make the rear maybe just a little bit narrower? We'll go down to 245s in the back. That should balance it out a little bit more. And suspension-wise, just to mess around with some stuff, let's put a little bit stiffer of a front bar in there. Let's see what that does. Aha, now you can see we've picked up our cornering a little bit. It's much more even now. It doesn't get understeery as early, and it drops off very quickly. So it would basically, you'd be turning into the turn, and then all of a sudden the front end would just wash out. So we didn't really gain any cornering G's, but we got rid of some of that overall understeery feel. And now if we went and back and made all the tires the same, just a little bit closer, but it still does about the same thing. So let's bring these back out to the 245s. I think that was a good fit. I'm gonna actually increase, up those to 45 and a 40 profile as well. Let's see what that does. So now you can see the larger profile tire. It makes it wash out even earlier. We've lost G, now only 0.88. So we want that pretty narrow profile on tires. But how can we get this thing to basically want to oversteer rather than understeer? We can increase that front bar some more. Let's see what that does. So now we've increased back up to that 0.9 G. And not a huge improvement though. We can up the stiffness of the suspension as well, which will help get rid of some of the body roll, which is represented in this chart here. So you can see, yeah, it's getting some pretty dramatic body roll. And as we increase the stiffness, now it's starting to come back down a little bit more. And our testing shows that we have not really increased our G's at all though. Now 0.9 is actually not a bad number for a stock car, I have to say. But we're just trying to mess around with it right now and see what kind of stuff we can do. So what would a little bit more camber do for us? We gained some G there, so now it's going to wear those tires a little quicker, but it has gained us that 0.01 G back with our larger tires. Let's see what else we could mess around with. The dampening stiffness would get rid of even more body roll. It did, so you can see it's now come down to about 2.5, negative 2.5, and it's still a little bit over 1. Okay, just for the sake of showing you what oversteer will look like and what it would do, let's put smaller tires in the back than in the front. So we got 215s in the back and 235s in the front. Now let's see what happens to this. Aha! So now we're getting slight oversteer, and then just snap, gone. See ya, you're in the ditch. Goodbye. Oversteer is a much more dramatic handling failure than is understeer. So that's something, as an automotive designer, you try and tend to stay away from. Just ask Toyota about the MR2. So that is why you will always see larger tires in the back than in the front on even front-wheel drive cars. You want to stay away from oversteer at all costs. Okay, let's ignore the handling for a moment, and let's see if we can get that cooling down to get our top speed up, and it would probably improve our economy as well. So we don't need probably that much. Maybe even only 200 kilowatts. Yep, look at that. Improved our top speed, aero efficiency, and the miles per gallon. So you definitely did not need so much cooling for 254 horsepower. Now I assume if we drop this down to 0, it's going to, yep, economy 29.6, 160 miles an hour, but it would explode because it has no cooling. I'm actually a little surprised that they do not yet. It probably doesn't affect it yet, but I assume in the future it will remove power if you don't have enough cooling. So we need probably at least 180 kilowatts of cooling. So there's what I will say our final stats are for our Cone GT. It's a lot of fun to mess around with. Now we have something more other than just the engine test to do. We can do a chassis test, which means we're getting really close to just being able to build some full cars and basically just sit here and build your own car company all day long in a virtual world. So that's what we're closing in on. Still a lot of work to be done, and this is only the public beta of 1.3.17. It is not publicly released yet, which means that it is buggy. I have had a couple little freeze-ups here today, just some random stuff. But I do encourage you to check it out, help us bug test it, and figure out what is wrong with it. If you're not quite ready to check out the beta, or if you would much rather just wait until the full release comes out, more power to you. Go ahead and download the engine pack that is in the description. Play around with that in the previous build of the game, and I hope you enjoy it. As for the future of the series, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. I'm probably going to focus more on building cars. I want to learn what all of this stuff means a little better so that I can more fully understand what I'm doing and try and build a full lineup of cars. I think that's probably the next thing I'm going to do. So stay tuned for that. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.